Says we should be live right now. Should be all set.
There we go. Here, let me.
Oh boy, Dugout Talk number 2. We are
Yes, sir.
we are back and better than ever. You will notice that I sound extremely nasally. It is because I'm currently mid cold. Hoping that it doesn't transition into anything worse. As of right now, it's just bad sniffles. Um, didn't stop me from having a good Christmas. How about you, Steven? How was your holiday?
Christmas was great. I went to a friend's house, spent with his family.
Okay.
Very, very nice surprise. Got myself a Lego gun out of it. So,
Ooh, okay. I like a full size like gun made out. I've seen people do those.
oh yeah, it's one of those full size ones. It
That's
is.
awesome.
I got the first part put together today, and then I'm
Okay.
gonna just. It gives me a nice little something to work on throughout the week.
Yeah, I got. I'll just grab it real quick. It's sitting over here. I got a telescope. My very first.
Hey,
Um, I've always
very
been
nice.
I've always been kind of big into astronomy. And so I was asked, hey, you're kind of at that age now where it's, do you actually want a gift or would you rather just get a couple $100? And I was like, you know what? I want a telescope. And so sure enough, um,
Mm.
didn't get to use it last night. It was a little cloudy out in my area. But I'm hoping tonight to catch a couple stars, maybe some good glimpses of the moon. Um, so yeah, I would say that's definitely gift number uno for me for sure.
Absolutely. That's a solid one. My area is really good about like stargazing and
I can
whatnot
only
too. I think it'd be
imagine.
cool to have a
I can only
telescope.
imagine. Yeah. Um, yeah, that whole Colorado area. It's a lot better. I mean, Pennsylvania's got some mountains, but nothing compared to the Rockies.
Yeah, you just got to get away from the city, live out in the rural
Yeah.
areas, and
Yeah.
you can see for miles. Great.
That's awesome. All right. With that said, happy holidays, everyone. Let's jump right into it here. We'll start off with a little baseball history, something that we did before. We're going to bring that back and revitalize it. Steven, go ahead and let us know what you got today.
So my day in history happened 48 years ago, 1974. The Little League officially welcomes girls after U.S. President Gerald Ford signed legislation amending the charter of the organization. Little League had sought changes in their charter after a series of lawsuits challenged its boys only rule. This has been a lot more impactful in the last decade or so.
Yeah.
I think for me, especially, my first recollection of seeing a girl play in Little League was Monet Davis, who is
Oh, yeah.
pictured on the left there. Completely changed the whole aspect of Little League. Really, she proved that girls can play baseball, which is very exciting. It's cool to see that. As far as will we ever see a woman play Major League Baseball, I don't know about that. But we're starting to see women get coaching roles in Major League Baseball.
Hmm.
We're starting to see where there actually is a D1. I think it's a D1 school. They have a female pitcher on their team. I can't remember the name of the school off the top of my head, but it's growing in that way, which is really awesome to see. But if it wasn't for Gerald Ford signing this into legislation, who knows where this would be today?
Yeah, softball is one of those things that like I'm kind of surprised there's not like a WNBA variant of because softball being so close to baseball in terms of pretty much everything besides pitching motions. Um, like that's something that I would watch. Like I know there's a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of like
100%.
yeah, exactly. Like the closest team to me I'd be rooting for constantly. But yeah, baseball is one of those sports I've just kind of been waiting. Like I feel like eventually some like one of these very fantastically gifted girls are just gonna stick with baseball. They're gonna break the norm of like you go to college, oh you got to play softball. They're gonna go to college, they're gonna play baseball, just dominate. And I don't see it being much more than another 10 years until we have women in Major League Baseball.
I would say maybe in 10 years we could see a woman drafted, but as far as like I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to like say it's never going to happen. It
Yeah.
just seems we're still. It still kind of feels like we're in a position where we're not as accepting of it. I guess like we're getting there, but we still have like there's still some boundaries that
Mm.
haven't that aren't being willing to be crossed yet. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely some hills left to climb there.
Absolutely.
Looking over at what I dug up, going all the way back. We're going all the way back to 1919. A day which, for pretty much every baseball fan ever, will live in either infamy or famously. Um, so, although it will not be officially announced until sometime in January, the New York Yankees purchased Babe George Herman Ruth from Boston's financially pressed Harry Frazee, paying about $100,000, one fourth cash, plus an extra $25,000 a year at a 6% interest, plus guaranteeing a $300,000 loan with Fenway Park as collateral. Um, Here you can see a wonderful little scrap out of a Boston area newspaper, talking about kind of the day in motion. Um, I mean it's got to be up there like top five most important days in Major League Baseball history.
And day that Red Sox fans never forget.
Never will.
You know,
Yep.
of all the
I
teams that he
got
could have gone to, he chose the
got the
damn Yankees.
yep got the pennies out. Yep. It was fantastic. I was like, man, I feel like I know something that's happened on December 26th, and like I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I know it's something Yankees related, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know what happened today.
Yeah, I didn't know it was the day after Christmas.
It was, yeah.
That's the first I knew about it. That's wild though.
So, jumping into what we're going to be talking about. The first thing is a little recap of the week. Last time you saw, well, I mean, you're seeing us just now for the first time since our relaunch. But last time you heard us, the Giants had signed Carlos Correa to a monumental 13-year, $350 million contract. We were talking about him as a potential face of the franchise, a potential hindrance to the franchise. Turns out he's neither. Turns out he's not with the franchise because he, between something prior injury, maybe a little Scott Boras interaction, the Giants decided to back out because of issue they had with the physical, and Steve Cohen of the New York Mets decided to just swoop right in, say what's up, Carlos, and they signed him to a 12-year, $315 million contract. Uh, Now, that's not even totally done yet because I guess the Mets have some questions and some interest about some of his physical information. Um, in other Nets news, they also brought back Michael Conforto. They brought in Taylor Rogers. Pretty solid moves overall for the Mets, I would say. Carlos Correa was a shock at like 3:30 in the morning for sure.
Absolutely. Conforto and Rogers are solid additions for the offense. I think it'll be interesting to see how Conforto does. He didn't play
Hmm.
last year because of a shoulder injury, so will he be the same Michael Conforto that he was with the Mets? How will Taylor Rogers do? He kind of bounced around a lot last year. He was traded to the Padres just before opening day. Then he went to Milwaukee. Had a bit of a down year, but San Francisco does tend to play towards pitchers, so
Yeah.
maybe it'll revitalize him. His brother Tyler is also on the team. Um, which, by the way, they're the fourth set of twin brothers to ever play on the same team as of right now, assuming that neither one gets moved before opening day. They will be the fourth set of twins to ever play on the same team, which is pretty cool to see. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure the Giants would have loved to have had Correa, but this is the good fail-safe option as well in getting a guy like Conforto and getting a guy like Rogers. They're still bolstering up the team. They're just doing it a little cheaper.
Oh yeah, I mean, in the end, it's definitely a much better financial situation for the Giants because Conforto was what a 2 year deal roughly, um,
Yeah.
some like 20 or so $1 million. It's not a terrible thing if Conforto doesn't work out. He's a low risk, high reward, and a lot of those guys end up at the very least covering what the team spent in terms of production given. And Michael Conforto is a guy that's still young enough, still late 20s, early 30s guy who could still go out and I think he can still go out and put up good numbers. There's no reason why not. The last
Oh
time we
yeah.
saw him, he was really good.
Yeah, he may not like hit for a ton of power, but he
No,
can
no.
easily hit a two. He can easily hit 270 at the top of the lineup.
Yep.
So I mean, it's a good. I think it's good for like the two. It was a 2 year, $36 million deal.
Okay.
Um, so it's a good contract, like
Still,
you
yeah.
said. High reward, low risk kind of thing.
Yep.
You just hope that he doesn't injure the shoulder again.
Yeah, of course. And with how good of an outfielder he is, that's always something that at the very least is in the back of your mind. Jumping over to your team, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They made a move, maybe not in the direction that you were hoping for. They traded catcher slash outfielder Dalton Varsho to the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I personally am a very big Lourdes Gurriel fan. Something I really didn't want to admit as a Yankee fan. But now that he's a Diamondbacks fan, I think he's a fantastic player. And to be honest, really well established. Never really had the opportunity to like be the guy in Toronto. There was always someone ahead of him, whether it was, a Teoscar Hernandez or whether it was a Bo Bichette or a Kevin Biggio. I think his opportunity to go to Arizona, Chase Field's one of those sneaky hitters parks that I think could really, really, really play to Gurriel's advantage.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're gonna dive a little more into this a little later
Mm-hmm.
in the live stream, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I hope it works out. This is definitely one of those trades. It's either going to work really well or it's going to blow up in their faces.
Yeah, yeah,
It looks good on paper, though. It definitely does look good on paper. As much as I hate to admit it, it looks good on paper.
for sure. The Angels, not long in typical fashion for our videos and live streams now. We talked about Brandon Drury, how he's a free agent. We were surprised he was still a free agent. It was the same day, that very same day that he signed with the Angels, and I'm like, oh well, I see that's still a thing. Um,
Yep, still a thing.
the Red Sox added Justin Turner, another guy that we had talked about as sort of I can't believe he's still a free agent. He was kind of in that list. And the Phillies added Craig Kimbrell to maybe not necessarily the back of the bullpen, but I think definitely he's going to be in the mix for some high leverage innings there.
Kimbrel. Oh, I'm going to be honest. I was surprised about Kimbrel going to the Phillies because they have Corey Knable,
Mm-hmm.
at least that I know of. There's so many free agents out there. Maybe he's actually a free agent. I just spaced it, but um, it's a little surprising when you look at it. But I think Kimbrel is one of those guys that if you put him in the closer's role and you keep him there, he should be good for you. He's not a dominant reliever that he was in his prime,
Yeah.
but he's durable. He can still get you good numbers. So it's interesting. I would think he's the closer now, and Corey Knable is going to be more of the setup guy, unless if
Okay.
they trade Knable for some more bullpen help or something along those lines. Drury going to the Angels is interesting, but I heard from a little birdie that flew into my ear that apparently Perryman Eisen is up to something.
Hmm.
Um, as far as what he's up to, no idea, but we could probably expect the Angels to be making some noise here in the coming weeks, if
Interesting.
not coming days. So just be on the lookout for that. Because the Drury signing too was kind of like, what are they doing? Why did they sign him? Because they got a whole influx of infielders already. But now it's looking like there's a little method to Perry's madness, and
Okay.
he's got something brewing. It's just a matter of what it is. Uh, as returner, the, I don't know what the Red Sox are doing. I really don't. Heim Bloom just kind of. It looks like he's drawing names out of a hat, and
Yeah.
he's just saying like can we give this guy a 1 year deal? Like, yeah, you could give him a 2 year deal if you wanted. He's like, okay, let's give him a 2 year deal and hope he signs with us. And he's just kind of throwing. I don't know what he's doing. Like, it's just it just seems like every day there's something out there that's like, what are you doing, bud? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to
Yeah.
win, or are you just trying to throw something together and hope you get another 2021?
Yeah. So yeah, as far as the whole Brandon Drury thing, people remember where you heard it first. Heard it right here on Dugout Talk. So when all the news breaks and I don't know Anthony Rendon gets traded somewhere, and just remember, just keep us in mind.
Yeah,
Um,
just remember.
but as far as Justin Turner goes, part of me wonders if it's the Red Sox preparing their fans a nice little needle-filled cushion for when they trade uh, their last remaining superstar of that 2018 team, Rafael Devers. I don't know. Maybe Justin Turner's really only
I don't.
played third base. He's got a little bit of first base, but primary third baseman.
Well, Turner's also in his late 30s. He could just be a
Sure,
DH
sure.
option for
Could
them
could
too.
just be a
But
DH. Could be.
yeah, yeah, you never know though. Again, you just there's no one really seems to know what Kyle Bloom is doing. He's
Yeah.
just kind of he's making moves, but it with no direction.
Yeah. And speaking of having no real direction, we'll move to the man who still has yet to figure out what team he's going to be playing for. Carlos Correa is the man of the hour today. Obviously, as I mentioned previously, the Giants raised some concerns about Correa's physical, and actually canceled his introductory press conference about 15 minutes before it was scheduled to start last week. And it was kind of like, you know, I even remember there have been a couple times that like Yankee press conferences get delayed or they get canceled, and it's never really a big deal. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time, just because situations like this are so rare, that it was kind of just like, oh, maybe someone important couldn't be there, Carlos couldn't be there, so they're just gonna move it to the next day. And I think it was literally that night, that very night that we found out about the whole backing out thing, and I'm like, whoa. And then,
Yeah, well,
oh, you can go ahead.
it wasn't even 12 hours later.
Yeah,
Like, well, no, it was more like 24 hours, I guess. But it was literally like kind of like what you were saying about the 3:30 in the morning
yeah,
kind of breaking news. Is like I remember waking up and seeing that he was a Met, and it was like, wait a minute,
yeah. I
what?
know. I was on a terrible sleep schedule all of last week, and so I was awake at that time, and just decided to scroll through Twitter as I'm sitting here trying to find something to do. And I started seeing people like talking about Carlos Correa and he's on Met and all this. How are him and him and Lindor are really buddy buddy. That's really well known. And I'm like, why are they talking about Carlos Correa there? And so I like searched him on Twitter real quick, and I'm like, whoa. And then immediately, I made a TikTok about it. You'll find us over there, TikTok at Dugout Talk. Um, and it was just insane. And I'm sitting there like getting ready to film it, and I'm like, I get like Carlos Correa, like how quick of a turnaround was that? It's like Scott Boras he was like, he's on the phone here and he's like, oh, you guys are backing out. That's a shame. And on the other phone, he's like, yeah, the Giants just backed out. Let's get this thing done. And he's like, no, I'm,
Right.
I'm not talking to someone else. And like, it's crazy how quick he turned around.
So there's something that should be known about this though, because the whole reason the Giants backed out had to do with Correa's physical.
Hmm.
Now, Carlos Correa historically, he's basically like Trevor here, not Trevor Story, Troy Tulowitzki.
Yep.
Had injury stints, extensive injury stints. His in the minor leagues, it was the year before he broke into the major leagues because he was supposed to break in around 2014. They were expecting him to be a September call-up, but he broke his leg.
Yep.
Um, and he was pushed back until June of 2015. But this is where the physical concern is coming in. It has to do with um, like where they did surgery on his leg. There's some concerns that he's a ticking time bomb at this point,
Yeah.
and that leg could break again at any minute. And that was why the Giants backed out. A lot of people were making it seem like the Giants had buyer's remorse because they don't spend money like that, and it's very true. They don't. Even though they have that money that they could spend, they just don't do that. And so a lot of people were accusing the Giants of having this buyer's remorse and just saying like, "Oh no, we can't afford this." Actually, but in reality, because now the Mets are raising these same concerns, the Mets did the same physical and they saw the same thing, and now there's this whole bind of, well, what do we do from here?
Yeah.
Um, I was talking to my cousin about this, and he was saying that basically what could happen is this could be like a John Lackey situation where when
Hmm.
John Lackey went to Boston, his elbow was a concern in the physical, but basically the way that I understand it is Lackey signed the contract, but if he had Tommy John surgery at any point as a Red Sox, he was going to defer a ton of money and just go to the like the league average or the league minimum at the time, which was 700,000. And Lackey ended up getting Tommy John surgery his
Hmm.
first year at Boston. So what could end up happening here is the Mets may agree to a deal. They may still agree to some kind of contract. I'd be shocked if it was this 12-3-15. Like I can't imagine that this is gonna stay. This is gonna stay. But what could end up happening is Correa signs like a 5, a 6, even a 7 year deal somewhere around like the 180, $200 million range. But what happens is if at any point as a Met he has a leg injury or he has an injury around that leg where the physical is concerned, there could be a team opt out in there where the
Hmm.
Mets can void the rest of the deal. So it's basically like a 7 year deal with an opt out for every season.
Hmm.
Or if he gets injured, he would end up losing a certain amount of money because of the injury, which I don't know if that would be exactly what they could do now, but there could be like a team opt out in there where if he does get injured, the Mets can say like, "All right, we're not doing that. We're not doing the rest of this." As messed up as it is, it's potentially something that could happen.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm Carlos Correa, I just say thanks for the offer. I'll see you later. If I'm Carlos Correa, I mean, I don't know. Would like the players union be okay with some? I feel like that's something the players union would definitely try to fight back on.
Oh, I'm sure they would, and that's why I'm thinking that what's more going to happen is the years and the money will get cut. It's not going to be so much, but it's not going to be something this big. Because to be completely frank, I don't think Carlos Correa is worth this much.
No.
He's a good shortstop. He is not elite, but he is good. He's not very durable though. I would say that.
Hmm.
Like you're gonna like if you give him a contract like this, chances are good he'll spend equivalent to what 4 years of that contract would be on the shelf with some kind of injury. Um, so that's why I was saying that like Correa could still get himself a 5 or 6 year, even a 7 year deal, but there's going to be a lot of clauses in the contract to basically protect whoever signs him so that then if he does end up getting injured and he's out for a significant amount of time, because this injury could end up affecting his career.
Yeah.
If something does happen with that leg, it could end up affecting the rest of his career. And if you're a team taking a chance on that, you want to have some kind of fallback in the event that does happen. But at the same time, this would be typical Mets to just say, no, we're going to keep the
Yeah.
12-3-15, and then he gets hurt in his first year and he's never the same player again. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but just I think he's going to be a Met at the end of the day. I don't see the Mets backing out, but I would be shocked if they didn't adjust the years and the money value on it to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. They obviously they signed him to the 12 and 315. But I wonder if the 12 and 315 is the revised one. I know originally it was reported they were around 300 flat, but I wonder if somehow Boris and Correa talked to the Mets and they were like, "Look, we still want the 13,350, but if you guys are willing to, look at the physicals a different way, maybe think about it in a different light, that we'd be willing to go take a year off and go down to 315." I wonder if that's something that could have potentially been brought up.
Possible. I don't really know. I don't really know though. There's just a lot that
Yeah.
happened. It all happened it's like, well, the Giants may have dodged a bullet. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, yeah, you could argue they got some buyer's remorse from it, but it's a legitimate concern. So it's not like you can really throw the Giants under the bus for backing out, but maybe they shouldn't have offered that much. And another thing that I'm thinking
Yeah.
is in the future, they may not release numbers like this in the future. They might just go along and say like, oh, there is an agreement in place, but until the physicals are actually
Hmm.
passed, then like we're not going to hear about numbers or years or anything like that, or at least official numbers in years.
Yeah.
I feel like this just changed the whole scope of what is going to happen in the future as far as free agency signings go.
Yeah, because I mean, um, it's pretty easy to, when teams are still bidding for a guy, it's easy to be like, rumor has it, this team's in for 6 and 150, this team's in it for, 6 175. But
Yeah.
once the contract is signed, quote unquote agreement is agreed upon, um, then you don't really have to be like, oh well, this is the winning bid. You could just announce it once the player is signed. Press conferences had, and the physical's done, papers are signed, the ink is dried. Then you could be like, these are the numbers. We'll go over it more like that. I could definitely see that being somewhere that teams and agents move on from.
One last thing that I want to bring up about this, and this kind of surprises me to begin with. Why don't they do the physicals before the contract's actually
That's what
signed?
I'm
You know what I
saying.
mean? Because because this was signed before the physical was done. And
Hmm.
that's where this whole drama is coming in, is that they agreed to the deal and then just like that, there was no deal. They they backed out. So why aren't they getting physicals done before the deal's agreed to? I guess is what I'm saying. I feel like that just makes more sense. Like, let's get you a physical. If you pass the physical, we'll offer you this. If there's concerns with your physical, I mean, they could still offer them the same amount,
Sure.
or they lower the AAV per year or whatever. I don't know. I've always been curious as to like why don't they do the physical first? Anyway,
And because I mean, they do it for players in like the combine, and I know MLB just had like their first like inaugural quote unquote combine. But in the NFL combine, like players take physicals. That's like one of the first things they do before they go out and they do any of the physical, on field stuff. They always have a physical, and then teams can just review it from there and make their own arguments. Yeah, it's kind of weird to think that MLB players like you enter free agency, you take a physical. I mean, I guess it could be an independent doctor, someone, your personal doctor or whatever. And then teams are welcome to also. I mean, I guess depending on how many people, depending on how many teams you had, like really interested in you, could make it a bit of a hassle. But I suppose they could always just, you could have like a agreed upon independent doctor do a physical, and then that's your your genuine physical, and then I guess after you sign. I mean, I guess I don't know, because even then, when you think about it, um, things could happen. If you do a physical before free agency, and then I don't know, you trip down the stairs, and you just thought you like sprained your ankle, but
yeah.
so I guess I don't know. It's tough.
Well, and every team has doctors too, so
Yeah.
it's like those team doctors perform the physicals, which that's totally fine. But I feel like they should just do that before the contract is agreed to.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah,
do it
I'd say
after the
I'd do that
contract
as
is
well.
agreed to. Do it beforehand.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to go about it. Just be like, before this gets out, this is the agreed upon year, agreed upon salary. Um, before we like, start throwing out social media posts, let's get you in here real quiet on a flight. We'll get you in. You do physical real quick. You can head back home if everything passes out. That will leak the information to the John Heymans and the Buster Olneys of the world, and then we'll make it official from there. I could see that. That's a good idea.
If anyone can explain to us why they don't do it this way, that would be
That would be
helpful because that's just
fantastic.
something that's
Yeah.
it's beyond my understanding for
Yeah,
sure.
contrary to popular belief, I'm not a doctor, nor am I well versed in the MLB front office, so I'll just throw that out there. We'll go ahead and move on from there to the aforementioned Diamondbacks Blue Jays trade. Um, Going into it a little more deep of a dive here, the Diamondbacks received the top catching prospect, Gabriel Moreno, as well as utility player Lourdes Gurriel Jr. As you can see down here in the bottom right, Moreno hit 319 in 25 big league games. Pretty small sample size, but he only struck out 8 times, and he threw out 7 of 17 base runners, potential base stealers. Um, that comes out to right around 40%. That's pretty good.
This is about, I would say it's like, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's
Yeah,
probably right around league average, if not a little above.
yeah.
So,
And
it's
for
solid.
a rookie like that was it was definitely a solid showing.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Lourdes Gurriel is a career 285 hitter, set to hit free agent markets after this upcoming season. In return, the Blue Jays received outfielder Dalton Varsho, who in the past has also been a catcher. Dalton Varsho this past season was one of the better offensive players for Arizona. He had a 235 average, 27 home runs. He also stole 16 bases. Um, he was someone that you were pretty high on most of the season for the Diamondbacks.
You may have seen my response in the group chat to that
Yeah,
trade.
yeah, yeah. It was not
Oh
good.
my God, and it was, and I was talking to my cousin about it. I was very sad when this got broke because Varsho became one of my favorites. He will always be a favorite. But I don't know. It was just like I'm happy for him. I think that he's going to do really well in Toronto. I think the Jays have a very solid player. In Dalton Varsho, I think it's more amazing that we were able to only trade Varsho for Gabriel Moreno. And then Lourdes Gurriel just kind of got added in as a bonus of like, oh, hey, you need a right-handed bat? Here, take this guy off our hands. Um, I think as far as the trade goes, it was kind of like what I was saying. This looks really good on paper for both teams. It's a shock that the Jays decided that they didn't need Moreno, but if
Yeah.
they're that high on Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk, then better be it for them. But I don't know. It's just it's a very interesting trade. I know Mike Hazen, the Diamondbacks GM, was saying that Carson Kelly was their catcher and they weren't going to be looking for a starting catcher. But now that they acquired Gabriel Moreno,
Yeah.
you got to figure that this is one of those things that I don't think they're going to trade Carson Kelly,
Yeah.
at least not yet. But Kelly's got a pretty thin leash. If it starts looking like he doesn't have it, he's going to lose his job very quickly. Because I don't imagine Moreno starting the year in AAA. I imagine he's going to
Yeah.
be on the big league club. It's just a matter of if he's going to be the opening day catcher. Like that's more so what he's competing with. And Carson has had some injury issues the last couple of years, so it's very likely that Moreno does take the bulk. And he's only what 22 right now too.
Yeah.
He's a young guy, so it's a very interesting trade. I think both teams do benefit from this. As sad as I am to see Varsho go,
Yeah.
this is the trade that does benefit both teams because now the Jays have another left-handed bat in that right-handed heavy lineup. Um, Lourdes can play infield. He's mostly played outfield
Mhm.
the last few years, so he'll probably DH a lot too. I don't really know where he's going to fit in with the Diamondbacks' plans. And we'll do roster breakdowns in February once training camps open up, so it'll be a little easier to tell like where everybody fits into the mix. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a solid trade. As heartbroken as I am to see Varsho go, it's a solid trade. The Jays don't. I don't think the Jays fans realize what they have
Yeah.
in a guy like Dalton Varsho, who almost won a Gold Glove this year. He should have, if you ask me. But it's okay. Beggars can't be choosers. Um, but when Varsho is on fire, I know he's never hit above 250 in a season, but when he's on fire, he is on fire, and he is more than capable of hitting for like a decent 260 to 270, but the power will offset that. So even if he does hit 235, if he's hitting 27 homers a year, you can take that.
Yeah, there were. Um, we kind of have like in our group chat, if a player on your team is kind of considered like a big home run hitter, we'll post in the chat. We make up little nicknames, little like John Sterling with the Yankees. How he has a home run call for every player. We'll make up our own home run calls for our guys. And Dalton Varsho's name came up fairly often this year. It felt like
Oh yeah,
27
felt
seems
like
kind of
it
low.
felt like yeah, I know. Like as much as it was coming up, because there were days that I think there were weeks it felt like I was putting like doing the trumpet call of Varsho
Yep,
in the chat
yep.
every day. It felt like there were weeks of that, and the fact that he only had 27. I don't think he had a multi-homer game this year though,
Hmm.
so that's
Okay,
kind of why
okay.
it feels a little low too. I don't remember off the top of my head though.
Yeah. Overall, I do like it for both teams. There are a lot of trades that you can usually look at and be like, all right, both teams made out good in this trade, but one team was very clearly got the better of it. This is one that, I mean, yeah, I would say the Blue Jays probably overpaid by giving a well-established MLB player, plus literally their best catching prospect. But they're also getting Dalton Varsho. Like he's a very well-established outfielder, has catching capabilities. He can be more than just like a quote-unquote emergency catcher. Um, the ability to have someone on your team that can kind of be. I know he probably won't. His days of catching are probably close to, if not over. But I think that a very underrated position in baseball is having a player who can catch, but also play other positions and be the backup catcher. Because literally it opens up a roster spot for pretty much anyone. So the idea of if the Blue Jays actually use Dalton Varsho in that way, I know it's asking a lot physically. To be, I'm assuming he's going to be an everyday either outfielder or DH, something like that. To also be a backup catcher and have to come in, maybe he's playing the outfield 6, 7, 8 innings, um, and their catcher for the day gets hurt. Now he's got to throw catching pad on. He's got to go throw the catcher pads on, and now he's got to catch for the next 2+ innings. Um, but I think overall it was a very solid deal for both teams.
Well, the Diamondbacks also have a lot of pieces that other teams want.
Yeah.
And this is and I was talking to my cousin about this too. Like I literally the day before this trade went down, I said that really Arizona, they have an influx of outfielders. They need some right-handed bats. But they've got the pieces that if a team comes calling to them about a piece, they have the opportunity to say like, well, we want this in return. And they pretty much did this to the Jays. They
Yeah.
like getting Gabriel Moreno. I, it's just mind-boggling that they got Gabriel Moreno out of this. Of all the people they could have gotten, they really said, you know what, we'll give you Varsho if you give us Gabriel Moreno. And Ross Atkins said, done.
Yeah. Yeah. Done deal. And speaking of done deal, welcome to the very first edition of Dugout Talks. Let's make a deal. We'll go through a few different trade proposals that we'd like to see happen. Uh, Trying to stick in the world of possible. We're not going to throw any wild trades out there. Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout to the Yankees for Aaron Hicks and Josh Donaldson. Nothing quite like that. Not quite outlandish. But we'll go ahead and jump into it with, I would say, probably the most interesting trade that you came up with, and that was Brian Reynolds to the Orioles. Dig into this for us.
Okay, so there was an article that came out last week about like trade proposals we'd want to see in 2023, like the 2023 portion of the offseason. Now, I was going to do a personal video of this, but trying to record in one clean take is a pain
Yeah.
in the butt. And I just decided it's better to do this on a live stream. So Mark Feinsand said Brian Reynolds to the Yankees. And I was looking at it, and he made a point that the prospects that would probably go to Pittsburgh, the Pirates may not want those prospects, which that was interesting to me. But it kind of makes sense because Pittsburgh is just in a weird, I don't know, they're in a weird spot.
Yeah,
Like
Pittsburgh's
Brian
barely a
Reynolds
baseball
requested a
team.
trade. I know they're just kind of throwing guys out there and saying
Yep.
like, here, there's a scrimmage or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. So my thought with this was Brian Reynolds may not necessarily be the best fit for the Yankees, but the Orioles could use an upgrade in their outfield. I mean, and the Orioles have a lot of young guys coming up, sure, but Brian Reynolds is one of those guys who has club control, and playing in a park like Camden Yards, he could thrive in that
Right. Yeah.
ballpark.
Really well.
So my thought was Brian Reynolds going to the Orioles for utility player Taron Vavra, relief pitcher Keegan Aiken, number 5 prospect Jordan Westberg, who's projected to debut this year. And on a team like Pittsburgh, he could even make the team on opening day. And number 8 prospect Dylan Beavers. He's only 21. He's not projected to be up for a little bit, which is why I think the Orioles would be okay with parting with him because they have guys like Kyle Stowers and Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman. Like they've got guys ready for big league action. And heck, if you even wanted to, the Orioles probably could throw in one of their outfielders like Austin Hayes or Cedric Mullins. I doubt they would. But
Mhm.
the whole point of this trade, at least for me, was Brian Reynolds has 3 more years of club control. Darren Vavra just debuted this year, and on a team like Pittsburgh, he's going to play every day. When I was looking at the Orioles roster, I did not see Vavra being an everyday guy for them. I think he'll benefit on a team like Pittsburgh where he'll get to play some infield, he gets to play some outfield, he gets to play some DH, get some bench at bats. Like he'll play in Pittsburgh, no doubt. Jordan Westberg, he'll probably play in Pittsburgh too. And Dylan Beavers will just get time to develop. And then there's Keegan Aiken, who had a career year this year. He posted a 3.20 ERA in 45 games, 1.09 WHIP. It was his best year so far. Teams can always use bullpen help. The Orioles have been addressing bullpen needs, so parting with a bullpen arm wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. This trade seems very light, but the whole point of this is everybody involved has club control. Um, and that's I don't know. I just Brian Reynolds in an Orioles uniform just seems right. It just seems right to me. Um, and then you can always move Anthony Santander to DH permanently because the Orioles can fluctuate with who they want as a DH.
Mhm.
If that makes sense, they don't have like a set in stone DH. Santander to me seems more like a guy who would be kind of a DH role. So you can move Reynolds to right or left. Mullins keep him in center or move him to right. And again, we're going to do roster breakdowns later on in February, but this was kind of what I was thinking. Like maybe not so much the Yankees, but I think the Orioles might be a solid fit. And again, Camden Yards, Ryan Reynolds could kill that ballpark. He had
Yeah.
27 home runs in Pittsburgh last year, so it's there. He easily could do it, and he's a switch hitter too, and everybody loves switch hitters.
Yeah, and he had a fantastic average in 2021. He was, I think, well over 300 as a hitter. So something definitely is very interesting. Brian Reynolds to the Orioles. I had something a little more mainstream, and that would be Brian Reynolds to the Yankees. Obviously, we'll just repeat his stats real quick. 262 hitter, 461 on base, and an 807 OPS. I'm assuming that's a 461 slugging percentage, and
Yeah, that was slugging.
yeah, and an 807 OPS. Um, as you mentioned, pretty decent average for playing in Pittsburgh. That big wall out in right field probably knocks down a lot more home runs than it helps produce. Drove in 62 runs, which for playing in Pittsburgh with that team and necessarily being at the top of that lineup, I think it's a very underrated number. I think 62 RBIs was a solid stat for him. And overall for his career, he's put up really good numbers despite playing in a relatively pitchers league and a pitchers division in the NL Central. Uh, my potential trade has someone I'm not really keen on dumping, but the way I look at it, um, if I'm going to if I'm going to gain an outfielder like Brian Reynolds, um, who's well known for his defense, he's not top flight, but he is definitely well above average in terms of defensive metrics. His offensive numbers speak for themselves. I'd be willing to give up Jason Dominguez, who I've always looked at as best he could be a Brian Reynolds. I don't. He's not going to be the next Mike Trout. He's probably not going to be the next Mickey Mantle. He's probably not going to be the next Aaron Judge. I would say he's a lot more likely to be the next. Remember that overhyped Yankee outfield prospect than he is to be Mike Trout. So
Yeah.
if I could offset losing someone with that type of potential for someone who's already reached a potential very similar to it, I'd be more than happy to. Um, I also threw our number 5 prospect, another guy I really don't want to part with, Everson Pereira. I've seen him a lot. He's in recent years he's been playing with when they were still a part of the league, the Staten Island Yankees, who were part of the New York Penn League down here in Low A. Um, Now I forget what team they have that's a part of it, but Everson Pereira is a very up and coming outfielder. Um, he's still extremely young. I think he's just turned 20 recently, and I think that a team like Pittsburgh would be interested in a very low risk, um, very low paid Davy Garcia, just because um, it's someone that they can kind of. They've always had the ability to kind of work their magic with some of these super high arm talent, kind of walk issues, the Francisco Lirianos um, of the world. They've always had the ability to kind of bring those guys in, the AJ Burnett's. They always bring in these guys. Now, most of the guys they bring in are veterans. I don't know how well their whole system post race series would work with a younger guy like Davy Garcia. But I think it's pretty clear the Yankees are done with that whole idea of him being the next big Yankee starting pitcher. He kind of falls in line with Justice Sheffield, and he falls in line with Chance Adams, and he falls in line with a whole bunch of other names. Um, but I think it's a trade. If I'm Pittsburgh and the Yankees offer me that, I think you might be able to squeeze out another 10 to 20 prospect rank player, probably of your choice. Um, but I think overall, that'd be a solid get for Pittsburgh. I think they would. I mean, Jason Dominguez is going to be ready for Double A and Triple A this upcoming season. And we've seen guys be successful jumping straight from Double A to the majors. The Braves have done that with a couple
Yeah.
players in recent years. So I could see Jason Dominguez potentially making that Double A to Major League Baseball jump. Everson Pereira, I still give him another 2 years at least of development time. And Davy Garcia is a guy that you could literally toss on your 40 man, give him a spring training invite, let him go through his thing. It's a real laid back community in Pittsburgh. Um, and I think at the very least he could be, a third or fourth starter coming out for a team like Pittsburgh. And just kind of lets him work on pitches, low stress. It's not the big bright lights where, you got to fire 7 innings of no hit ball or the Yankee crowd's going to start booing. He can go to Pittsburgh,
Mm.
1,500 fans max. Everyone's out just having a good time at the ballpark. I think something like that could benefit Davy Garcia at least somewhat.
I think Pittsburgh's a place that he'll at least get the pitch. It kind of feels like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Yankees, and this is just coming from an outsider, but it feels like the Yankees just don't bring up young arms.
Never do.
Like they
We
they're
we
really they're really stingy about it, and I think if you send a guy like Garcia to Pittsburgh, he'll get the opportunity to show what he's really capable of.
Yeah, we've always been guilty, at least in the past, 10, 15 years. We tend to we're holding on to our prospects longer than we ever have, and we're waiting to call them up to see what they have longer than we ever have. Jumping
Right.
into our next trade proposal, this would be another Steven vehicle. Liam Hendricks to the Braves. This is a very interesting one. Run it through it.
Yeah, so Liam Hendricks, the White Sox have made it known that they are looking to trade Liam Hendricks. He had a good year last year, 37 saves, 2.81 ERA for a White Sox team that's sorely underachieved. It's a little surprising that they are looking to trade him, but if that's kind of what they're looking at, why not? Um, I know the Angels have been linked to Hendricks, which is a little interesting. I don't know if he would really fit in Anaheim very well. Um, but I was thinking, I don't know the Braves have Rizal Iglesias, but if you had to choose between Liam Hendricks and Rizal Iglesias, the sexier option is Liam Hendricks.
Yeah.
He's been pretty durable as a closer throughout his career. And the Braves, considering that that they fell short when they looked like they were the most legitimate threat to repeat as a World Series champion, because we haven't had a repeat champion in 22 years. They really looked like they could do it, and they fell short of the mark by a long shot. So why not upgrade the back of the bullpen, get a guy like Liam Hendricks back there? My trade proposal is the White Sox would also include number 7 prospect Jose Rodriguez, who's an infielder. He can play second and short. Along with Hendricks, they'd go to the Braves. The Braves would send starting pitcher Huascar Ynoa, number 5 prospect Cole Phillips, number 11 prospect Adam Meyer, and number 17 prospect Drake Baldwin. Ynoa would probably get a bullpen or a starting role in Chicago. It's kind of looking more, Ynoa might be better suited for the bullpen.
Hmm.
He has a 5.22 ERA and 122 and a third innings pitch, 128 strikeouts though. So like the potential is there for him. He's always getting hurt. Um, and it just kind of seems like a lost cause in Atlanta right now. So I think sending him somewhere like Chicago, where he has an opportunity to compete for a starter spot, but also just get an opportunity to pitch on the big league club. Because, like I said, I think he might be better suited for the bullpen, and you can never go wrong with getting bullpen help. So he's a young arm too, so he's got plenty of time to develop. The White Sox can always use some farm help if they want to run the Central for a while. They could purge the Braves farm system for some low level minor leaguers, but they're top prospects. Cole Phillips and Adam Meyer aren't projected to debut until 2027 and 2026. They're both right-handed pitchers. And then Drake Baldwin, he's a catcher. The White Sox don't really have any catchers in their system. Drake Baldwin would easily be a top 10, probably a top 15 prospect in that White Sox farm system. He's projected to debut in 2025, so that's really not that far away.
Yeah.
And the White Sox, outside of Sebi Zavala, they don't really have anybody, as Monty Grandal will be a free agent after this upcoming season. So this is more so the White Sox are revitalizing the farm. They're adding talent to the farm. They're getting a catching prospect to help them out in that area. They're also sending a closer over to the Braves where they can get some back end bullpen help. And the Braves are also getting a top prospect in Jose Rodriguez, who is supposed to debut this year, uh, according to the MLB.com top 30 prospects site. Rodriguez is projected to debut this year. It says the Braves don't really have a quote unquote shortstop. They have Orlando Arcia, but he's probably more of a bench player anyway.
Yeah.
They have Vaughn Grissom as well, but Jose Rodriguez could easily see himself in the mix to some degree. And if Albies gets hurt again, they got him at second base. So it's I think this is a win-win trade for both sides. The Braves are getting help in the bullpen. White Sox are getting help with the farm. Keeps them relevant for a few more years.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say that'd be a fantastic trade. For the Braves getting a guy who's so well established, and I wonder, if Liam Hendricks is just kind of ready to move out of the American League. I think a move to the NL East. He's a very high energy guy. Um, he's always, I mean, as you can see here, I can move our lovely faces out of the way. You can see he's always a high energy guy. He always brings it. He's always pumped up. And I wonder if a move to a really like highly competitive division, having him pitch in much more meaningful games and much more meaningful moments in those games. I wonder if I could be a boost in a different way. Most of the time we talk about guys moving to a less stressful division, a less stressful place to play as a good move for them. But maybe with someone, of Hendrix's physique, and someone of his I hate to say mental state, but the guy's a menace. He's a monster on the field. Um,
He really is.
when the White Sox, just this past year, after that whole Tim Anderson, Josh Donaldson thing. He closed that game out and got the last out, and it's like the first time that he had like got a save against the Yankees unscathed in like 3 or 4 years, going back to his Oakland days, and he's fist pumping, he's screaming, you can hear him on the telecast. He's just a high energy guy, and I wonder if a move to a high energy division like the NL East is going to be next year may actually end up being a boost for him.
Yeah, it might be. The NL East is going to be pretty competitive. You got three teams for sure, and
Yeah,
potentially a fourth team that are going to be competing. So the games will be a little more meaningful. While the AL Central, it's kind of a big game of what if.
well,
Like they could have four competitive teams. They could have one competitive team. And,
yep.
it's hard to say at this point.
Which team will be less bad is what the AL Central is going to be next year. I hate to say it. I
Right.
hate to say it. All the Guardian fans out there, you guys kind of just won the division because everyone else fell apart. Like,
Yeah. Well, Terry Francona is also just
I mean,
a
Terry
lovely
Francona
human being.
has
So
black magic. I've pretty much assumed that. Moving on, I thought about this one last minute. I didn't put this one together until just a little bit ago. And I'll move our lovely faces out of the way once again. I am considering a potential Salvador Perez to the Houston Astros trade. As a Yankee fan, I hate it. Hate it. I had to hold my lunch down just typing this out because he makes literally the world champions repeat world champions. Like he would be the piece de resistance for that team. Um, Looking at his 2022 season, um, is kind of a step back in a sense because when you look at his 2021 season, I thought he should have at the very least been a top five MVP candidate. With how
yeah.
well he came back, he didn't play in 2019 because of shoulder injuries, and people are like, man, like maybe Salvador Perez, kind of like how Madison Bumgarner, he had a lot of miles on him very early on. The Royals were a perennial playoff contender, and as a catcher, I feel like a perennial playoff contender that's more physically hitting than being a pitcher for a perennial playoff contender. So Salvador Perez, he set the MLB record for home runs by a catcher in a single season in 2021. Nearly hit 50, and then this past season hit a modest 23 home runs, drove in 76 RBI. Through 114 games, hit 254 with a 292 on base and a 465 slugging. Very respectable numbers for a catcher. Even with those numbers he had there, he was in the top echelon of offensive production for catchers. I'll move our faces back over here. Um, and then transitioning over to his career stats, he's definitely going to go down as one of the best offensive catchers in baseball history, um, if not the best of our generation at least, right up there with guys like Buster Posey. Maybe even you could throw Brian McCann maybe in there a little bit. Um, so as far as what the Astros would trade in return, I have them trading their number four prospect, Pedro Leon, who's an outfielder with a little bit of second base potential, as well as the right-handed pitcher Forrest Whitley. Now Forrest Whitley he's been pretty injury stricken in his minor league career, but I feel like for a team like Kansas City who hasn't they've hesitate I hesitate to say that they've been treading water, but a lot of the moves they've made this offseason and a lot of the moves they made last offseason have told me that they're not trying to do like the Guardians are with their signing of Josh Bell. It doesn't feel like they're trying to compete, um, but also be financially smart. It just feels like they're really just business as usual. They had new owner group. So Patrick Mahomes, I believe, is a part of that group now. So they're kind of mixing things around. I think they're going to see what they're going to do, and the ability to get out. Salvador Perez is due 62 million over the next 3 years, in terms of 20 million this upcoming season, 20 million the next year, and then 2020 or 22 the following season. And then he has a $13.5 million team option with a $2 million buyout for the 2026 season. Um, and I think the Astros could potentially get a bargain, only giving up. I mean, Forrest Whitley, I hesitate to call him a top 10 prospect for the Astros simply because of his injury issues. Um,
Mm.
but his arm talent's there. His arm talent's definitely there. We've seen it in the minors. Um, and Pedro Leon is no sniff either. I think Pedro Leon is the main piece of this deal. And Forrest Whitley's kind of the sweetener to it. But I think if the Astros are going to be willing to take on all of the money that Perez is owed, I think it's very possible that the Astros could get away with only having to give up two of their quote unquote major farm pieces, which it sounds like a typical Astros thing. They get the top flight guy. They don't pay a whole lot for him because they're taking on some contract money, and then they'll end up reaping the rewards winning the next three World Series or something. I don't know.
This is a very interesting trade, but I think you have a point with it too. And I can't see Salvador Perez not playing in a Royals uniform. I just
Yeah,
can't.
it's
Like
tough.
it feels wrong. But at the same time, like considering kind of where the Royals are headed, because now they got MJ Melendez, who
Yep.
I would imagine is going to get a lot of catching time.
Hmm.
Well, Melendez, though, like Varsho, he can also play outfield,
You
so
can. Yep.
that like makes him a very. But I don't know. I think the Royals will need to make a decision. Like, are they going to make Melendez a catcher, or are they going to make him an outfielder? Like, what are they going to do? But yeah, this is interesting, and I kind of can see it happening. I don't know if maybe it would happen this year, or maybe it happens in the mid-season,
Yeah, I could see
maybe,
it more
or maybe
mid-season.
like I don't know. But I could see, I could definitely see the Astros taking on the contract too. They did it with Zach Greinke, so
Hmm.
it
That was
wouldn't
kind
be
of
out
what
of
I
the realm of
was.
possibility.
That's what I was kind of hinting at. They kind of just went out and got him from Arizona. Didn't really have to offer a whole lot. We'll
No,
move.
they really didn't.
Yeah, we'll move on to another one of yours. I thought this one was also very interesting. I'll move our lovely faces out of the way again. We're looking at a Corbin Burns to the Houston Astros. This is your version of the Houston Astros trade. So run us through what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so the Brewers are clearly in this stage of they're kind of cutting back on payroll. It looks like their reign of terror, quote unquote, in the NL Central is done. They're obviously taking a step back. They're not really trying to traditionally compete. I mean, not saying that they're going to be a bad team, but they're not like the favorites in the Central now. There have been some rumors that they might field some offers on Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. If I had to take a ponder, I would say Corbin Burns is the one they're most likely to trade. I think they would hold on to Woodruff. But if the Astros want to be a legitimate threat to win a title again, I think they have to go out and get Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
Like I think they have to. It just that makes sense to me. Um, Burns won a Cy Young in 2021. He was incredible last year as well. He threw 202 innings, 294 ERA, 243 strikeouts, a .965 WHIP. I mean, he's one of the best out there. For pitching in a park like Milwaukee too, that's really hitter friendly. He is as good as they come. Um, the trade that I have proposed is the Astros would send starting pitcher Jose Urquidy, outfielder Jake Myers, and number 3 prospect catcher first baseman Yainer Diaz. Diaz is projected to debut this year, and I think on a team like Milwaukee, he could make the team out of opening day. He might even just be their opening day catcher. Uh, Again, that's a big maybe. Urquidy, pretty solid pitcher. He's not a frontline ace, but he will get you innings and he'll get you a decent, like 3.94 ERA. That's still solid. It's not fantastic, but you'll take it. You'll gladly take that. And he had one more win than Burns did last year. 13 and 8 and 164 in the third innings, 1.168 whip. Good middle of the rotation guy. I think he would fit very well in Milwaukee. As for Jake Myers, he hasn't really gotten consistent playing time in Houston. I think this would just be more of kind of getting outfield depth for the Brewers. They traded away Hunter Renfroe. They have Jesse Winker. They also have Garrett Mitchell, but other than that, they're kind of thin on outfielders. I think Myers would definitely get some playing time in Milwaukee. Um, This is more so this benefits the Astros in the sense they're upgrading their rotation after losing Justin Verlander. As for the Brewers, they got a young arm in Jose Urquidy who will get them consistent. He'll consistently go 5 to 6 innings. He might even dazzle on occasion and put up a 7 or 8 inning outing. Then you get a prospect in Yainer Diaz who could make an immediate impact on the team, and who knows, he might even be able to build around him, uh, along with Christian Yelich. So it's a kind of middle of the road trade. I think it's a little bit of an underrated one. I don't know if this is one that a lot of people could see happening, but kind of like your point with Salvador Perez, the Astros could just say like, "Hey, we'll take Corbin Burns off your hands, and we'll pay the dude. We'll give you some of these guys to just bolster your team up and keep you relevant." And because I don't think the Brewers are necessarily going through a rebuild, I think they're just
Yeah.
retooling. It's just a matter of is Corbin Burns part of that retooling now? Because I think if the Brewers don't extend Corbin Burns at this point, he's going to get more expensive as time goes on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, Corbin Burns. I mean, fastly approaching his free agent status, and if the Brewers can get um that out of it, Jose Urquidy plus two well respected prospects, um, I think it's very possible in terms of uh, it's a very possible trade in terms of balance for both teams. Go ahead and transfer over to my third trade potential. I'm looking at a Pablo Lopez to the New York Yankees trade. This was something that was rumored to be very close to occurring at the midsummer trade deadline. Um, it was rumored, maybe a Pablo Lopez. I heard that Gleyber Torres' name was getting tossed around. I heard that the Yankees were looking to get someone else in addition to Pablo Lopez in that trade. I'm basing it down to the roots. I'm not tossing any extra players in from Miami's standpoint. Just strictly a Pablo Lopez trade. Um, Now you could ask yourself, why necessarily with the addition of Carlos Rodon? Do you really need a Pablo Lopez? Um, but I think that with the lack of MLB ready starting pitchers for the Yankees, they really preferred Clark Schmidt out of the bullpen this last season, where he performed fantastic. For the most of the season, he scrambled a little bit down towards the end, but most of the Yankee pitching did. But for the large part of the season, Clark Schmidt was nails out of the bullpen, and I think it's probably likely they're going to do what they did with Michael King. We're coming up through the minors, very highly touted starting pitching prospect, who just kind of eventually became a relief pitcher due to just didn't really have the longevity, I should say, to be able to consistently go 5, 6, 7 innings, which is kind of a path that I see Mr. Schmidt taking as well. So, throwing Pablo Lopez in there, he's not like a sixth starter. He would be very firmly the fifth starter. Uh, so, looking at Pablo Lopez's 2022 stats, he had a firm 10-10 record for the somewhat surprisingly competitive Miami Marlins. He had a 3.75 ERA, struck out 174 batters, walked 53, and allowed 21 home runs across 180.0 innings. Looking at his career numbers, you can pretty much disregard the win-loss record. He really, playing for a team like Miami until the last, year and a half, 2 years, Miami really hasn't been that competitive. So his win-loss record, kind of looking at like a Degrom type, where it's really not that important. A firm ERA though, 3.94 ERA. A nice 489 to 142 strikeout to walk ratio, and he's allowed only 59 home runs through 510 innings. In return for Mr. Lopez, I have the Yankees giving up their number 4 prospect, catcher, slash outfielder Austin Wells. Austin Wells is projected to make his MLB debut this upcoming season. He really broke out as a hitter these past several years, and has kind of transitioned from being a strictly catcher because at the time, Gary Sanchez was looked at as the the base, the rock at catcher for the Yankees moving forward. So he started. I mean, I'm assuming that that had something to do with him dabbling in outfield work, and he actually ended up becoming a fairly decent outfielder. Someone that I'm really excited to see make his debut, and someone that I'm excited to see make contributions to the big league club. He's still only 23, still has a ways to go in terms of age. He's not even close to reaching his potential as far as that goes. I also have the Yankees giving up in kind of a what I had discussed with Davey Garcia going to Pittsburgh. I have Luis Gil going to Miami. Luis Gil had shoulder surgery or elbow surgery. I'm not entirely sure. I forget which one it was. That pretty much sidelined him this season. But when he played last year, he was fairly good. He had like 11 scoreless innings to start his career, which was close to a Yankee record. Um, he kind of struggled in AAA last year as well. The times that he did get to play before his injury, he was kind of struggling a bit. But I think that that might have been due to the injury, and it just hadn't been diagnosed
Mm.
yet. I also have the Yankees giving up established major leaguer in Domingo Germán. I think it'd be pretty apparent that the Yankees would have to give up someone that's starter capable if they're getting another starter. Because Pablo Lopez is a very clear upgrade over Domingo Germán, and by losing Domingo Germán off the 40-man roster, and B the 26-man roster, that opens a spot for one of their many minor league bullpen arms. They seem to be able to bring up a bunch of guys who are all very successful, and it also opens up maybe a potential 40-man and 26-man spot for maybe another trade target, maybe another free agent signing. So I think Domingo Germán can kind of be the you get this guy right now. This guy's an MLB quality player right now. Um, he did miss a little bit of time this past season due to a shoulder injury prior to the start of the season. But when he did play, I was kind of skeptical because we really haven't seen a whole lot of Herman. Uh, how good he was before his suspension. He There was a lot of people that thought that he was going to be like a solid number two, number three,
Hmm.
Luis Severino esque pitcher. Uh, but after his suspension, he really wasn't like quite the same guy. He still has shown flashes, and you can see that here in limited outings, and quite a few bullpen outings as well for Herman. 3.61 ERA, 58 strikeouts, only 19 walks across 72.1 innings. I think overall, looking at it from Miami, that's a solid get for a Pablo Lopez. Could you get more? Sure. It might be another situation like what you discussed where maybe it's not the Yankees players that's the problem. Maybe it's just how Miami views their players, and the way that Miami values the incoming prospects the Yankees would be trading. I think Austin Wells is going to be a fantastic major leaguer. Maybe maybe not like a perennial All Star or whatever, but I think he could be a well-established veteran MLB player. He's got great bat skills, and his defense is coming along alongside it. So I think what are your thoughts? Just to get your thoughts quick.
Well, Yankee trade, if you ask me, like it's kind of like what I said earlier. The Yankees don't really bring up their starting pitchers.
Hmm.
It's very rare. It just seems like they're always going out on the market or in the trade market and bringing guys. And when they do bring guys up, they'll make it's kind of like Luis Severino. They make an impact, but then they're out for a couple of years,
Yeah.
or end up getting moved to the bullpen because they're just not cutting it to the starter. Um, but I mean, I could see the Yankees and Marlins working something out again, maybe for Pablo Lopez. Um, I think Domingo Herman would be a solid get though for Miami. I think it was like you said, he's shown flashes of being really good, and I think he's capable of it. And who knows, maybe going somewhere like Miami, a little less stress. It's not, it's a big ballpark that they have in
Mm.
Miami too. So, and it looks like he has pretty good control of keeping the ball in the yard too. Like or keeping the ball, if the ball gets put in play, it is like he usually gets an out of it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of what it looks like, more than anything. So I don't know. I think it could work out in Miami's favor, but they also could ask a lot more for Pablo Lopez too,
for
because
sure.
Lopez has also shown flashes of being top tier starting pitcher. So not bad though. I definitely could see something happening
Yeah.
with this. It might, I don't know, but this seems like a typical Yankee trade. Don't let the starting pitchers come up through the organization. Go
Yep.
send them off somewhere and just kind of let them do their thing, which is a real shame because Luis Hill has potential to be an ace. At
Yeah.
least the way I see it.
Um, and discussing Austin Wells again, he's got, I would say, one of the best mustaches in minor league baseball. If you haven't seen it, you really do have to check it out. It's fantastic. I'm looking at it over here on my second screen. Yeah, excellent mustache. And he's got. I completely forgot to tap on this as well. He's got wheels. He's got 32 stolen bases over the past 2 years. So he's for a quote unquote catcher, quote unquote outfielder. He does have some wheels as well. So we will
Yeah, I mean, if you have catcher status, that's solid. Stealing
precisely.
five
Yeah,
bases as a catcher is
yeah,
solid.
yeah. Jumping into the next one, you're looking at a Rafael Devers to the Texas Rangers proposal. Dive into it.
Yeah, so this is kind of going back to the whole what the heck is Ty Bloom doing in Boston, and the fact that he wasn't able to bring Bogarts back, the fact that he's looking at trading Chris Sale now. There's some worries that he's not going to be able to extend Rafael Devers. He's a free agent after this upcoming season. The way that I look at it is if you're going to trade Rafael Devers, you probably do it now. But the Red Sox are not going to get a whole lot in return, so say, if they do it now, just because he will be a free agent after next season. But when you look at a team like the Texas Rangers, who are obviously trying to compete now, and I said this last week, there's nothing wrong with that. I actually love what the Rangers are doing, and I think, especially now that the Astros have won the World Series and they're the defending champs, this is the time to do it. Go challenge your in-state rival this way. Um, so I got Rafael Devers going to the Rangers. Devers is a solid hitter. He's not like a perennial defender, but he is a great hitter. He's got raw power. 139 career home runs, a 283 batting average. Last year, he hit 295, 27 homers, 88 RBI. He is the face of the Red Sox right now, aside from Trevor Story. Um, and with the way kind of Boston is going about things, they would just be looking more for some, what do you call it? Not necessarily upgrades, but just
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to find ways to fill their holes, I guess is what I'm saying. So the Rangers, I know Dane Dunning has been rumored to be in some trade talks because the Rangers have been looking at, getting some starting pitchers, getting some improvements, and Dane Dunning has been a name that's been coming out and about. Red Sox need some pitching, so Dane Dunning is there. Dunning uh, did okay last year, but he would be one of the main names in this. Mitch Garver, a catcher, who the Rangers actually got from Minnesota, would also go in this trade, as would number 11 prospect Aaron Zavala, which I don't know if he's related to Sebi Zavala, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was.
Yeah, that's a
And then
unique
number
last name.
18, yeah, and number 18 prospect Maximo Acosta. Zavala isn't projected to debut until next year, but Zavala did have a really good season in the minors last year, so it looks like he's on the fast track. And for an organization like Boston, who knows if he does really well down in AAA or AA, he might make the jump. Costa projected debut in 2025. He's just more of kind of like a bench role. He almost seems like a Ronald Torres type player,
Mm.
but he's good depth to have in the infield. Garver was injured most of last year, only
Yeah.
played in 54 games, but when he's healthy, he's one of the better catchers out there. And again, Dane Dunning, he's just more, he gets you some starting pitching rotation help. I think playing in a park like Fenway might help him a little more too, just because Fenway is a really quirky ballpark.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, the potential is there for Dunning. He struck out 137 and 153 innings. I think he might just need to go play somewhere other than Texas. But it's it's more so the Rangers would just be getting Devers to kind of like potentially speed up the process. I don't think they would extend him because they do have Josh Young,
Hmm.
who's projected to be their everyday third baseman in the future. Is just a matter of do they feel like Josh Young is ready? And obviously Devers can DH too. So this is, I would say, of all the trades I have proposed, this one is the least likely to happen. But if there is a team out there that could do something, if the Red Sox really were offering up Rafael Devers, I think it would be the Rangers. And just to have him for this year to maybe help them get over that hump, why not take a gamble on it? Especially if it's only going to cost you this. Like that really doesn't cost the Rangers anything. Like sure, you lose Zavala, who could end up being an impact guy, but other than that, you got like what is there to lose in this case?
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely place it in the realm of possibility, just due to the fact that the Rangers make wild moves like this. No one really thought that they had any reason or any right to go out and make all the additions they did last season, and throw all the money that they did at their middle infielders in Semien and Seager, and no one really had them pegged to land Jacob DeGrom this offseason. So I could see them doing a real quick hyper build up. 2023 is the year we're gonna make a run for it. You know, ALS is probably locked up for Houston, unless losing Justin Verlander just like collapses the team. I think that
Sure.
they'll probably repeat as AOS champs. They'll probably repeat as a 100-win team. So I think at the very most, Texas is going to be looking for a wild card spot. And I think it's possible that if they landed a Rafael Devers, I mean, he would rake. He would rake in Texas. Texas is
Oh yeah, he
such a
would.
great ballpark for a lefty hitter like him. The fact that he puts up these numbers and he plays in Fenway, right field in Fenway is no joke. You really do have to get it out to get it out. So to be able
Yeah,
to,
yeah. The ball does not fly in right field like a lot of people think. I mean, you
yeah,
got pesky pole,
yep,
but other than that, it's like it goes from 302 to what 370,
real
just
quick.
like that. It's a very sharp, not quite right angle, but it's a
Hmm.
sharp enough one that it can screw you over. Um, and it is a pretty big park. If you've watched any games on TV that
Yeah,
they have in Texas, like that's a big stadium that they have. But right field, I mean, a guy with Devers' power could easily make right field look like the Yankee short porch.
yeah. A lot of people believe that they made the Texas ballpark to kind of be like the ballpark that Joey Gallo built. Maybe it ends up being the ballpark that Rafael Devers built. But
Yeah.
I think a move to Texas would be fantastic for him.
Again,
And
though, like this trade does seem a little like less likely just
oh
because they
yeah, of
do have a
course.
couple third base prospects.
Yep.
But this would just be more of like for 1 year, have the guy there
Yep.
help give guys like Josh Young a chance to be leaders. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you're the Texas Rangers, at least explore it.
And
Maybe
if
this is a midseason trade that they do just to
exactly, yeah.
bolster their
Yep.
lineup if they need help.
Yeah, I was just about to say that as much Yankee bias aside, it really does look like it'll be another fourth or fifth place finish for Boston this upcoming season. They're really hammering home the rebuild idea, at least in the short term. So I could see very
Yeah.
well Rafael Devers. He's either going to get locked up before the season starts, or they're going to trade him at the deadline to maximize their return before they lose him to free
Yeah.
agency. Um, so I see that as a potential. I think it's much more possible as a trade deadline trade. Texas is hanging out, second wild card, heat race is heating up, Seattle's hot on their tail. Maybe the Angels are still very at the very least contending for a wild card spot
Yeah.
there in July. Could be something the Rangers just say, hey, we'll toss some prospects your way. We'll take Rafi Devers for the last, 2.5 months, and we'll see what we got.
Yeah, it's very possible. Would not put it past them one bit.
And just some other news before we jump into our next trade proposal. Lourdes Gurriel has been awarded a jersey number. Do you have any idea what jersey number Lourdes Gurriel may be wearing for the Diamondbacks?
Think of what numbers are taken right now. Uh,
I'll give you a hint. The number that he's
I'll,
going to be wearing recently became available.
oh, recently? So is he just wearing number 12?
He is according to
Oh
yeah, he is
no!
not only is
Oh,
he
my heart!
not only is he
My heart, it hurts.
replacing Dalton Varsho, he is full on stealing that man's identity. So
No, my heart hurts right now.
so for all
Oh,
you
that
Diamondbacks
hurts.
fans out there that own Dalton Varsho jerseys, congratulations! You now have weird
A
Lourdes
Lourdes
Gurriel
Gurriel.
jerseys. Yeah, so I thought that was funny. I was just uh, scrolling. I'd heard some news that there may be some potential moves tonight, so I've been keeping my eye on Twitter.
I
Um,
I've been keeping my eye on it too.
yep. Just because I don't want us to go through this whole live stream. We don't look at our phones. We don't keep track of anything outside of this. We're in our own little box. And then the second we hit end and we pull our phones up, it's like, oh hell, like Shohei Ohtani just got traded 15 minutes ago, and Mike Trout got traded over here, and Aaron Hicks got traded over here. Yeah, we'll move on to another one of your trades. I really couldn't think of a fifth one. There's just, I feel like in the trade market, there really just hasn't been, like I felt like when I was looking into the whole Pablo Lopez idea, I felt like I was already going into the realm of make believe. So I didn't want to make a fifth one. I've been under the weather, so I'm just gonna let you take the cake and eat it too here with the last trade.
Okay, so this is kind of going back on the Diamondbacks. You mentioned Pablo Lopez with Miami. I was thinking about a Pablo Lopez deal to Arizona potentially, but I think the Diamondbacks are going to be looking for a left-handed pitcher over a right-handed pitcher, and I think Jesus Luzardo fits that bill. Um, Luzardo actually had his best season last year, even though he missed the whole summer with an injury. 4-7, 3.32 ERA, and just a little over 100 innings pitched. 120 strikeouts, 1.037 WHIP, solid numbers, especially in a ballpark like Miami. Fantastic
Mm-hmm.
season. He pitched mostly in Oakland though, or he broke in with Oakland, I should say, when he debuted. 4.59 ERA career in 266 innings. Uh, a guy like Jesus Luzardo going to Arizona with a pitching coach like Brent Strom, who's seen as one of the better pitching coaches in baseball. We saw what he did with Zach Gallen. We saw what he did with Merrill Kelly. We even saw what he did with the young guys that came up last September
Mm-hmm.
for Arizona. If you get Jesus Luzardo in there to work with him, to help him with his control, help him like mix his pitches better, I think this trade could be a solid steal for Arizona. And the Diamondbacks have done business with Miami in the past. They got Zach Gallen from Miami, and
Sure
that's
did.
worked out very well for them. Um, this would cost the Diamondbacks more, though, because Luzardo is a free agent in 2026. He's a young arm. But I think if you're the Diamondbacks, this is still one of those moves you don't need to break the farm system with doing. You're still going to give a good amount of talent. But the good thing is, as loaded as Arizona is, these guys will have a better opportunity in Miami than they will in Arizona. So my trade proposal is send the Miami kid Pavin Smith. He can play first base and outfield. Number 5 prospect Blake Walston, who's projected to debut this year. Number 8 prospect Ryan Nelson, who pitched last season in September and had a very good September, I should say. And number 16 prospect Wildred Patino, who's an outfielder. Uh, Patino's about a year away, but I think he'll get better opportunity in Miami to play every day. Walston could make the rotation out of opening day. I think he'd be better suited in Miami. I don't think he would make the opening day rotation in Arizona. Um, he might. It's hard to say at this point, but I think if he went
Mm,
to a place like Miami, he would be an immediate replacement for
yeah.
Jesus Luzardo. Nelson last year in 18 and a third innings pitched, 16 strikeouts, a 1.47 ERA, and a .82 WHIP. Very solid. Um, I would love to have that on Arizona, but I think if you're going to get a guy like Jesus Luzardo, giving up a guy like Ryan Nelson in that short sample size is more than worth it. And I think Nelson could even put up better numbers in Miami. As for Pavin Smith, 253 lifetime average, 21 homers, 86 RBI. Again, he's a Miami kid. He does have pop. Give him a chance to play almost every day. He should produce. I mean, he's not going to be like a perennial hitter by any means, but he will hit for power. He will hit, probably somewhere in 240, 250 range. So this would be a trade that does benefit Arizona, but also benefits Miami because they're getting a lot of young talent back. Pavin Smith still has 3 years of control left as well. So I think this is one at the end of the day when you see it, explore it. Maybe this isn't exactly what gets returned, but I do think the Diamondbacks also solved their outfield problem with like the amount of lefties that they have. Getting rid of a guy like Pavin Smith, but they're also bolstering the rotation. So then they don't have so many young guys in there on opening day because right now the opening day rotation is slated to have a mix of either Dre Jameson, Ryan Nelson, or Tommy Henry um, behind Bumgarner, Gallen, and Merrill Kelly. So the Diamondbacks could use some veteran leadership, I guess, or they could use a more established pitcher in that rotation right now. Lizardo would fit that bill very nicely, I think. That's just my opinion, though. What do I know? I'm just some commentator behind a camera.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this really could be a steal for the Diamondbacks, strictly because of Luzardo being young, being left-handed, multiple years of control. He's got good strikeout stuff. Um, and honestly, it feels like the prospects that you guys would be giving up, while they are valuable, I feel like the value that Jesus Luzardo brings in return for them is very much worth the offset. Um, yeah, Jesus Luzardo, kind of flirted with being a bust with Oakland. There was, we were kind of
Mm-hmm.
waiting and waiting and waiting to see him debut. And then once he did debut, like it was kind of a bum. It was a bit of a shame to see him not be the front line, Sonny Gray heir apparent that he was touted to be. So to see him kind of come
Yeah,
alive in Miami has really been a nice showing for him.
it has. It has been nice. I mean, the only thing you get concerned about is maybe if the injuries catch up to him
For
because
sure.
he was out for 2 months. For actually, he was out for almost 3 months.
Hmm.
Um, so it is a little concerning, but again, he's got the control. It's not like, oh, we're gonna trade for him, but you lose him right away for that amount of talent. You get 3 years of control with this guy before you lose him. So it it does offset. I agree with you on that 100%.
And we'll go ahead and move on. I'll move us down to the bottom corner because this next slide is talking about our boy Jim Reynolds. Happy retirement to you, good sir. Um, he is now the third umpire to announce his retirement this offseason. Um, it was like 2 years in a row that he got some serious chin music with foul balls back into his mask. Uh, do you think that I don't know what his specific reasons for retirement was? Do you think that maybe had something to do with it?
Unfortunately, I think it did. And the way they take concussions, the way the concussions are seen now, it like it. I've talked about this with some guys that I know in the umpiring world. All it takes is one, and the minute one hits you, it seems like the rest find you. And I know there was apparently some talk that Reynolds had been considering retirement in the next couple of years anyway. But I think, like you said, the chin music that he received over the last couple of years um, definitely played a part in that. Really unfortunate to see that too, because Reynolds was actually, well, he's one of those umpires that players really loved. He
Yeah.
was very well respected around the league, and so to see a guy like him go out like that, you don't want to see it. But he has nothing to be ashamed of. Is the good, very good resume would have been even better. But now he gets to enjoy retirement. He gets to be with his family, and who knows? Maybe later down the line we'll see him in like a TV role or something as a rules
Yep.
analyst or something like that. But Jim, congratulations on a career. Good luck in retirement. Um, yeah, he'll be missed for sure. Definitely one of the good guys in the game.
Yeah, and not a lot of controversy surrounding him. That seems to be a big thing with a lot of umpires and officials in other sports. Basketball's had a big, the NBA's had a big issue lately with, how referees are, they're calling different types of fouls that normally they're more relaxed on. The NFL feels like referees are, kind of throwing flags, not throwing flags, and the biggest spots and the biggest games. In MLB, it feels like balls and strikes are being called a little more erratic than normal. And there's been a lot of calls that have been, subject to quite a bit of controversy in recent years. So for Mr. Reynolds, who pretty much went through his whole umpiring career without a whole lot of issues from the fans, without a whole lot of issues from the players, and without a whole lot of issues from the managers. Only 43 ejections through nearly 3,000 games. I feel like that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, he just went out there and did his job, and that's what you want to see. He's just a guy that he worked hard. You could tell that he cared about his craft, and he got promoted to crew chief, rightfully so,
Yeah.
3 years ago. He's just definitely an all around, just one of the best ones in the game. So yeah, it's just happy retirement to you, Mr. Reynolds.
Happy retirement, Mr. Reynolds. And with that, we have reached the end of our second episode post relaunch. The Dugout Talk co-hosts, I'll make us go ahead and brighten us up here. Really do appreciate you guys hanging around. Appreciate everyone who gets to go back and watch this later on. This gets to hang out in the archives with our other one. You can find that also on our YouTube channel. Um, once I get through this whole nasal thing, I'll get back to posting more TikTok stuff again. We're gonna stay up to date on Facebook. We have a group now. I believe you have the all the information for that. Um,
Just look up Dugout Talk on Facebook. It's a private group, so you
mhm.
think you have to request an invite, but you request an invite, we'll put you in. There's rules on the group chat or in the group, so if you want to be part of it, you have to heed by the rules. But this is the way to connect with you guys as well. If you do like what we do, that's kind of like the best way to really connect with us, I guess.
Yeah,
Is go on that group. You'll get to interact with us. You get to post your crazy opinions, whatever it might
by
be.
all means, yeah.
Um, yeah, we welcome all opinions. Just no politics.
Yeah, it's a lot more. I would definitely say it's a lot more fan friendly than having like a what we had in the past with just a generic Facebook quote unquote page, where
Yeah,
we post content and then you guys react to it. This gives you guys the ability to post your own content to our group, and it may even be stuff that we feature on future episodes. You know,
yeah,
potential trades. You guys can post those. We can keep you updated with our own posts about, you know, keep an eye out for our next live stream. We're going to be discussing this. Feel free to drop by, excuse me, and drop your comments. Drop your thoughts, your opinions, your objections to it. This really will give you guys a lot more access to us. Um, Outside of, hey, if you like the video, leave a comment below. This gives you guys a lot more uh, one-on-one access with us moving forward.
absolutely.
All right. Um, a nice breezy hour and 40 minutes. We cut that down from last week where we were approaching like 2.5 hours. Um, I'm excited. I think we'll probably get another stream out either at the end of this week or very early next week. Um, and then we'll get some YouTube videos out, some formal ones, some pre-recorded ones. We'll keep you updated on the Facebooks, and we'll keep you updated on the Twitters, and we'll keep you updated on the TikToks. I'm gonna get Instagram running again, and other than that, I'm all set.
Yeah, it's successful live stream.
Very successful.
Thank you guys for being here. We'll catch you all on the flip side, and we'll post when we'll be back live again.
Yeah, if we don't catch you guys before the 1st of January, Happy New Year's, everyone. Um,
Happy New Year.
2023, it's going to be crazy. Growing up, never thought I'd see a year like 2023. Like it felt so far in the future. But I feel like we say this every year. So, all right. Look forward to catching you guys on the next one. Have a great night.